on Monday, June 27th. And we have two items. The first is SRO discussion.
Yes, all right.
Superintendent Evenson.
Chair Polly, members of the board, Director Haithman and I are here tonight. We have some information for all of you that I'd like you to consider. So over the last, I would say 2 school years, we've had a lot of conversations about student safety, how intentional we are as a district with our processes and protocols to make sure that staff and student safety are at the forefront, really, of all the decisions that we make. We have a number of really good safety measures in place as a district. We work with our staff every year on the safety protocols. We have, secure entrances where people have to buzz in or buzz out, and all of that. That being said, we are still looking to increase those measures in a variety of different ways. As you've been working on the strategic plan committee, you know that there are some additional things that we would like to accomplish as a district as we're enhancing our safety measures that we have. One of those that has come up really since I started is the SRO conversation. And so I provided for you some information, just some historical. The most recent contract that we had for an SRO was from 2016 to 2020. It was a 4-year contract. Service was provided to all of our sites. JES, JMS, JHS, pre-K is included in that as well. The SRO was actually an employee of the city, and the superintendent and board chair provided input on who that candidate was in the SRO assignment. The SRO had a flexible schedule, so if there was an evening event that took some priority, we were able to work with them in their schedule for the week and work with Chief MP as well on that. The SRO wore their uniform badge, they carried a full-duty weapon, and they held many duties, including development of safety plans, presenting information to students and families. There was a lot of student interaction and family interaction. They helped with different agency resources. They were really familiar with our school policies and then provided law enforcement action as needed. To be clear, the SRO was not somebody that was on the discipline team. They weren't a disciplinarian of our students. That was never the role. Chief MP has shared the importance of this position in relation to security, safety, and relationships. When we had an SRO, the district provided a secure, confidential office space, technology access, and supplies. The city also provided the basic things, the technology equipment, all of the office supplies and things like that, and it's outlined in the contract. At that time, the program was funded 65% school district and 35% city, and that aligned to the 9 months of the school year and the portion of salary and benefits, which makes sense. This position was eliminated in 2020 when the district really started to experience some budgetary challenges, and I totally understand that. That had to be a really tough decision as a school district and as a board to do that. That being said, whenever I'm asked about the fact that we don't have an SRO, I still feel very safe in our schools. Our officers, I've said this before, they know every square inch of our buildings. And they do, they check it. They're up here all the time. I don't even text you guys anymore if there's an officer up at the building because they just stop in. Like, they are a presence in our buildings, and we love that. I will say this, however, when I think about our current conditions, they have changed. We are in a different spot with our budgets than we were 2 years ago because as a board, you've made some really tough but necessary financial decisions to help right size and balance our budgets. We continue to monitor rising costs, I'll say that. We have a healthier fund balance than we have had, but we still are fiscally conservative. We're still monitoring every year. We don't know what 2023's funding cliff might look like, but we are balanced. One of the other things when we continue to focus on enhanced safety and security measures, we are the only district in Scott County that doesn't have an SRO currently. And there has been a lot of, I would say, communication among superintendents, even in the last 2 months, for obvious reasons, about safety and security. And there are a number of districts that do have the SRO position. that are our size and demographic. I have had opportunity recently with the city administrator and chief MP, and they have expressed their full support, and they would really love for us to reinstate the SRO position as well, and would be supportive of entering into another agreement should we want to seek that as a school district. I will also tell you that administration, our directors, and our building principals have asked every year that I've been here if there is any movement on reinstating that position. And I do hear it from family members too. I do hear it from staff members too, in multiple roles, throughout the district. So as Amy and I continue to put our heads together, looking at what this means for us as a district, the first and foremost solution for us to consider would be our safe schools budget and what that looks like. So this is one area, and Amy, please jump in if I say anything that's not 100% on point, but this is one area, if we had to go negative, we could. Not to say we would go negative, because we would likely then take, fund balance from the general fund or from another applicable fund to cover the staffing if we were short. In 2021, 2022, our restricted safe schools fund balance will be an estimated $10,439. And we also will receive $84,000 plus in safe school levy dollars. So based upon the estimates, the district would have the funds available to cover the SRO for the next school year. And then the other piece to make you aware of, we continue to explore other grant options. I know Stephen is here tonight, Amy is here tonight, and they've actually just recently applied for the grant. I know I put it in my weekly update on Friday. There was a shift. If you recall, the police department was going to apply for, it's called the COPS grant through the Department of Justice. Chief MP learned that that cannot be applied for salaries and benefits, and so he had shared that with us. Well, Amy and Stephen put their heads together and took a look at what it could work for. And actually, Amy, do you want to just specify some of the things that you thought of including in that grant application?
Stephen might want to help, but some of the things that we wanted to look into getting were the monitoring of if a door is propped open or if a door is open and shouldn't be open, and then respective people will get email notifications that doors were open or there's visitors in the building. Is that correct, Stephen?
Yeah, we currently have, I don't want it to sound like we don't have anything. We currently have a system that doors are opened on a schedule, everybody has to be buzzed in, but there could be more information out there where if a door is left open after it's buzzed in or something like that, currently our system doesn't allow for that. So the grant was to upgrade the system to give more information and to get that information out to anybody that needs to. Doesn't even have to be within our staff. It could be out to the community, could be to law enforcement, wherever it needs to go. But if there is a door, that's a big one. If it's propped open, if a door is trying to shut and it can't for whatever reason, if the door opens unexpectedly in the middle of the day that we never seen it open before, again, it's getting that information out to people that need to know that information. As well as upgrading our visitor management system. You walk into a building as a visitor, if you don't have a staff badge, they scan your license or you type in your name. Our current system it's not very intuitive, not very user-friendly. It's a lot of time to actually get the information of what a visitor is, where they were going, what time they checked in, checked out. You have to go to that actual computer and look it up. So we would be looking at upgrading that system as well to be more, where again, getting that information out. Someone could go to a website anywhere with a computer, not even be at our site, log in and say, oh, so-and-so went to the high school at this time, they said they were going here, they checked out at this time type of thing. So upgrading kind of that, again, it's getting more information out to the people that need it.
So I have them share that so that there's an understanding that even if we were to utilize all of the funds that we have in our Safe Schools Restricted Fund, we are also looking at other measures and other opportunities so we can continue to chip away at adding more enhanced safety measures. So I wanted you to know that. It's a different conversation, but I think it's relevant so you know, even if we use up this entire restricted fund balance, we're still looking at the other components. The other thing that I would share is that The previous cost at $65,000 was $57,000 paid to the city in 9 monthly installments. There is a potential that we could be asked to provide 75%. I think there was a shift with how the city was assessing, the funds for that. They have other agreements. For example, they have an SRO down at MRVSEC, and that's a 75-25 agreement. I don't know that they're going to ask for that. It's possible. I just don't want you to be blindsided if they start with that. And I will say that the potential cost at 75% is $87,000, and that was a high estimate from Chief Empey to Amy. And so for us, I wanted to engage in some conversation. I want to gauge if you are supportive of us moving forward with this, because if you are generally supportive, this is not an action item because it's not a regular meeting, but if you are generally supportive, then Amy and I will enter into conversations with the city to move forward so we could bring forward a contract to you to approve as a board to add a position of SRO. Any questions?
How were we paying for the SRO previously? Was it coming out of the Safe Schools budget?
It was coming out of the Safe Schools budget, yes, and then there were also some other expenses that came out of there. And so even before I started, that restricted fund balance was in the negative, but then I believe 3 or 4 years ago, the state supplemented that budget as well with state aid, and so that helped that budget a lot. And then since we haven't had that expense, we really haven't been spending those dollars. This year we actually put in new security cameras at the high school. Middle school? No?
Middle and high school
Okay.
were the,
And
I
that's what
believe,
we
this
used
summer.
the Safe Schools budget for this year.
Okay, so that 84,000 is not, that's a pretty typical kind of allocation, annual allocation?
Yes,
from-
it is.
okay.
Yep.
So it is quite possible we could sustain this position, unless something goes crazy with, salaries, and benefits. But even then, this would cover a majority of that position. I would feel very comfortable making a recommendation to the board that we could sustain this position, knowing where we are at right now with budgets.
So do we have somebody writing the COPS grant?
Yeah, it's submitted already.
It's submitted already? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that was, submitted last Friday.
21st, I think.
What are we doing now?
Yeah.
That was, that grant was just, as superintendent mentioned, you couldn't use salary, so that was
Right.
just
Yeah.
equipment or any cost to install that equipment.
And you had to be a chief officer of the school, like Brett Empey had to get special Department of Justice access for me as a school district administrator to even get into the Department of Justice system to do that. It's locked down.
So if we don't get that grant, do we have, would we still utilize, would we still do what we were planning to do with that grant? And then what funds would we
Yeah.
utilize?
So good question. So I will answer first and then I'll have you jump in. So regardless of whether we get the grant or not, SRO position can be funded with these dollars that we have. The grant is more for the extras that we want to pursue. And some of those extras, like he said, include the enhanced visitor greeting package. And we can look at other technology budgets, capital budgets, to accomplish those things as well. In terms of the alarm system, I mean, it's possible we could look at other long-term facilities maintenance dollars with those things as well. Amy, am I missing any other potential budgets?
We can, we could, if we wanted to use the Safe Schools budget, that reserve can go into the negative. With,
If we had to.
For a few years without.
What's the size of the grant we're pursuing?
The total, we requested 200,000, so it's about, I don't have official numbers, and the grant didn't, I won't have to RFP it and do all that stuff, but working with vendors that know our buildings are estimating, depending on the building, between 50 to 70 a building, is depending with the doors, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, the systems aren't always compatible, so we're ripping out some old equipment and having to install new. We can't just reprogram the old stuff, so.
And,
Sorry. And
You
then,
first.
like she mentioned, the visitor management, the quotes I've gotten for that are right around $2,000 to $2,500. So that one is something, like she mentioned, we could move forward with.
building.
Per
Yeah.
building, yeah, or per site. We would
Yeah.
look at adding it to the circ as well, as that is a public entrance too. So we would, so that one we could pursue with, like you said, maybe Safe Schools, capital funding through technology, something like that.
And then the other piece of it is, I mean, I know we are in the preliminary stages of looking at some major building considerations as well. And if we aren't able to accomplish some of these larger scale projects, that could be a conversation with Facilities Committee too.
And I think too, in regards to the Safe Schools dollars, a lot of time, the legislatures, they just need to know that we're working on securing our buildings, so it's almost best to use that, even let that restricted balance go into the negative, because that's sending them the message that they're not giving us enough funds for this purpose.
And I just want to add, over the last month, every one of our tables talked about safety of our schools, right?
Right.
So, and I think this is, you know, this is a great step for us to consider next, in my thoughts. And also knowing that there are options for the additional security measures, whether or not that grant is approved.
Yep. And I will say too, and I don't know a lot of details about it, but I have heard rumblings that there could be some potential federal dollars that could be allocated for school safety coming in the near future as well. I've not seen anything, you know, hard and fast about it, but I have heard that that could be a piece as well. You know, understandably, that would be supportive, and we would utilize every penny of that, but that is also a potential. But I think even regardless of any potential and all of the additional enhancements that we want to begin adding, in terms of the SRO, I believe with the funding we have, we can accomplish it. And my gut feeling is that this would be one of the single most impactful decisions, because it's a lot more than school safety and security. The relationships piece is super important. You know, the different things that they do with, you know, before prom and graduation with some of our high school students as well, on the education piece of it, things that they do with all of our students in terms of educational is important. And then, you know, Chief Empey, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me sharing this either. They felt such a positive piece out in the community as they had worked with families, that they had relationships with students from the school. And so that is a piece that has been missing. I know they've had to step back from, you know, some of the things, you know, even with like kindergarten safety day, the mock crash every 3 years. I mean, those are things they've just not had the capacity to do without an SRO officer that helps our students and benefits our students. And I know that they would love to be able to continue to do it as a department. So it really helps our whole community, even more broadly than the schools.
Well, it seems like you've really put forth all the information and you're making the recommendation. I'm with Sarah. I'm in support of this moving forward, especially since you guys got a plan put in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I apologize, I'm not looking at the material, and so it might be in there. What is our expectation in terms of the SRO and their dedication to district activities during their time on shift? So, and if you think about it kind of like from a full-time equivalent, or if they're working full-time, how much of their time is dedicated to district activities versus non-district activities in this partnership?
Sure. You know, I don't really have that information as to how that worked out in terms of FTE, but Chief Empey did share and express, and it does even express it in the initial contract, that they were able to flex their time so that if there were some big events, Friday night football game, you know, those kinds of things, that they were able to be present there and not exceed their hours. That being said, even without an SRO, I know that they attend our football games and they provide that service in the community. So I think, Rob, that'd be something that once, you know, we engaged in a agreement with the city, that the chief and I would have to really work that out to figure out what's even manageable and, what the expectations would be. My gut response, my expectation would be that there would be some big nights like open house, some of our bigger sporting events, and big arts nights that we would want, their presence, if for nothing else, to build relationships with our community, and be a presence there. So,
But I think, as I'm reading this though, like, during the 9-month period, they're full-time effectively
With
here.
us,
They're not
yes.
splitting their duties with other police obligations in the community. It would just be that 3-month piece.
that's my understanding, yes.
There are times though, like over holidays.
Oh,
the
sure.
city will pull them back. Or
Not on
if,
school days, I think, too.
right, yes. Or if there's a court appearance or something related to another case that they were involved with outside
Sure.
of the district, then they
Sure.
would be off-site.
Would they office in the?
Yes, yes, they officed in our district, they officed in the high school. I've engaged in some preliminary conversations with our admin team too about that, and we've looked at some different opportunities. Probably would still do the high school in the main office area.
Okay.
Is that the rationale then for the 75-25 split?
Yes,
They would essentially be on for 9 months over the 12-month timeframe?
that's 100% how it's articulated. Yes, you are right. And if you were asking that and I didn't understand, I'm sorry.
Well, I think, I guess in my mind, if it's 65% to it's 75%, I think that, the partnership makes sense. I think it's just a matter of, kind of what is kind of overall fairness, especially as we're trying to, I would say, maintain a relationship with the city and hopefully grow it
Right.
going forward. And I guess kind of in my mind, one of the key responsibilities of the city through the police force is protection of everyone, kind of who resides kind of in Jordan. So that's kind of the primary role that they're going to have. I think that this partnership and being able to have that person on site is very important. But at the end of the day, 20% of the population is going to be, one of the children that we're, serving as a district. And so I guess kind of in my mind, if we can get into kind of that more kind of 65%, that would obviously be more kind of preferable. 75% is probably something that it sounds like we all can kind of live with. But I hope that this is an opportunity where when we say partnership, we really mean it's partnership. It's not just partnership in name only, and the district ends up funding the vast majority of this. Because I do think that this is an example where city and district really, should be coming along collectively. And this is a good, kind of example to be able to demonstrate that with action.
For sure. And I would say, and I think if our principals were here, they would say that, I'm just going to say Angie Otto, she was the last one that we had. She was really involved and really helpful in a variety of scenarios, just educational components with our students. So I would agree. I think it has to be a really solid partnership and collaboration for it to be most successful for our kids. So, and that goes as far as to say when they do select that candidate, making sure that, and I've talked to Brett about this, and it even outlines it within the old contract that the district would be part of that selection consideration, so that we're finding the right individual to support those needs too.
Is MRFSEC a higher call type of a building versus the Jordan School District as a whole?
I would say yes, which is why I'm not hanging my hat on the 75%.
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
I was thinking that's why
The
they were
job
probably more
might be
75,
different.
25, because
Yeah.
it's a little bit different of a
Yeah.
job than what we have here.
Yes,
That has a
and-
little bit more.
And to be clear, nothing has been negotiated with the city administrator, not one thing. And that would be their role. It would be Tom's role to work with the city council, and mine to work with you as a board. I'm just throwing out, 65 was the old number. I have heard through the police chief that it's 75% down at the Southwest Metro site. That's the only reason I know that. So nothing's been talked about. It's quite possible to say, yep, 65 is it, Or they could say it's 75 because of this. We've had zero conversations about that,
Okay.
so. So if you all, I'm sensing you all feel comfortable with me pursuing this, so I'll reach out to Tom Nikkinen on next steps. I know it'll take a little bit of time for them, because they'll have their process as well, moving forward. And then, hiring an officer and doing all of those things takes a little bit of time too, which we know as we hire positions. But I appreciate the feedback on this and the support for us to move forward on this. I think it'll be well received, and I think that it'll be really helpful for our district, so.
When we do have a draft of the agreement, I would like it run past our attorney.
Of course, yeah.
And we would still have like because I think it said before that we had a choice, like we got to select, or the board selected who the officer?
No, the superintendent or the board chair, I think it says, would be potentially a rep on their interview process.
Okay, got it.
So I'd be part of the hiring process. And yes, we would, any contract that we get, we would run it through our attorney, and the city actually has the same attorney office, just different attorney. So we'll make sure that that's done. Okay. All right, perfect. So the next discussion item, you will see several papers. One of them is really pretty. I want to talk baseball facilities. So you know that our varsity team uses the Mini-Met beautiful facility. We actually are not assessed any cost for utilizing that facility. Our kids really love playing there, and it's a great place. It's kind of one of the, like the school district's the heart of the community. I would say the Mini-Met's the heart of the baseball community in our town. I have been approached by Ron Beckman regarding an ongoing effort to improve the community baseball facility. And, we talked a little bit about the collaborative project, some of the plans that they are looking to do. And I have a photocopy for you of kind of their punch list of things that they would like to do. They're looking at updating the press box space and roof repair. They're looking at upgrading an RF line, fencing, and fan viewing area. There are some fun things that they are considering doing just on the community aspect of it, with like a first baseline patio deck, like kind of the nitty-gritty stuff that our baseball players would benefit from would be the backstop upgrade and new netting system with a 3-foot knee-high wall. They're looking at some, landscaping repair behind and around the grandstand, a viewing deck. And they're also looking for some efficiency measures with LED lighting as well. It can bring down some of those costs for lighting. When Ron approached me, he had shared a previous example of a partnership that our school district has engaged in. So I made you all photocopies of some of those other conversations that were ongoing really from 2010 to 2013. So this isn't the first time that there was a community project of this nature. Our Field 2 behind the high school and Jaguar Field improvement, really we were the benefactors of that collaborative work. And so I just have some basic documents that you can look at, some of their agenda items and talking points and all of that, so you can see that we've engaged in this kind of a collaboration before. To do all of this work, Ron had shared that they're anticipating it will cost about $400,000 to get, yes.
Who's they? Who does Ron represent?
Ron represents a group of Jordan community members. They are working with Bolton and Mink and the city of Jordan.
Okay, so it's not the city.
They actually have a committee that Jason Schlepsky chairs.
Yes.
That is the Mini-Met board.
Yes, thank you for that.
And they're doing this in preparation. They got the tournament for 2023 or 2024. 2024, I think.
I think it's
The state tournament.
Yeah.
So that this is in preparation for that.
So they're looking at about $400,000 worth of improvements. The city of Jordan has committed $100,000 to this. They also have an unnamed pre-committed donor for $150,000 of this. So the committee, the Mini-Met committee, is looking to get some donations. I shared with Ron that as a school district, we we don't make donations. That isn't something we're in the business of doing. However, this is our baseball facility that we use, and we do pay for site improvements. And we do pay for maintenance sometimes on facilities that our students utilize. And so they have requested the school district consider over 3 years' time $30,000, so $10,000 a year. I will note for the board, we have not been charged use of that facility, to my knowledge, ever. I don't recall ever being charged to use the mini-met. Our kids do benefit greatly from the facility. We do need the maintenance in the facility. Do we need a roof deck? No. But we could be, we could use capital dollars, and we could be invoiced for some of the maintenance, which would be my preference, to get an invoice to pay for some LED lights, or to be invoiced to pay for the backstop, and that would be our contribution, because those are things our kids need to have in place to use that, and so I would feel better about being invoiced for the maintenance pieces. So I wanted to put that out there for you, because it is a conversation, and, it's something that we've done in the past.
When you say invoiced for the maintenance piece of it, do you mean invoiced annually, or invoiced, like annually going forward for maintenance, or invoiced for the maintenance piece of this project?
For the maintenance of this project,
For a total.
Of
over 3
$30,000.
years of 30,000.
10,000, 10,000, 10,000.
So they purchased LED lights, will.
They can invoice us for that part, yep.
$5,000, or they,
Yep.
we'll pay that.
That's what I would recommend. I would not feel comfortable making a blanket donation that could be used for a roof deck. That wouldn't align to what our kids' needs would be, and it wouldn't feel ethical to me.
We as a district can't donate
That's what I
Yep.
was wondering, if we couldn't.
it because it's
Correct.
public funds we're dealing with.
So how many times a year do we play on this field? Does anybody know that?
Oh, I don't.
Every varsity game, I believe, is played on that field. That is a home varsity game.
So is that 8, 10? Be helpful to know.
That's a joke.
That
question.
feels like, yeah, probably 10, because we have away games too.
Any game, yeah, because I don't even know how many games that they.
So JV, 9th grade,
No.
just varsity?
I mean, they probably have a JV game, like for fun, or something like that, but it would be mainly varsity.
And then they typically host the tournament.
Yes, there are some MSHSL events there every year, yeah.
And they haven't charged us at all ever for the use of that space.
Hence the question, right? You can pay a lot of money. I have several questions about
Sure.
this. And,
Sure.
so, I mean, we also need to irrigate fields, we need soccer field space.
Yep.
And the other thing that I don't quite understand is, these improvements, I'm not sure that they're being made by the city.
No,
Right,
the
they're
city
being- The
is,
city's, as you said
Yeah.
about the school, the city's the benefactor, right? Because the
Sure.
city owns the park. So I think
Yeah.
they're park improvements to the city park. But I'm not sure, I mean, there's no agreement saying that we have continued free use, or, maintenance is taken care
Sure.
of by somebody else. So if we do a series of things over 3 years, I'm not sure, I'm not sure how we're covered on that.
yeah, I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know. But the city, just to touch on one thing, the city is committing $100,000 to the project, so.
So your concern is that they may come back after 3 years and say, we're gonna charge you? Is that what your concern is?
I don't know why it would be 3 years. They could tell us next year. They could tell us anytime, because
Sure.
Well-
there's no agreement with the city.
Yeah.
And this doesn't sound like this is the city making the request.
Isn't it the Baseball Association that actually runs and manages that whole entire facility and not the city, though? And isn't it like, what's the name of the organization, Jason's? No.
I think they manage it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't think the city even manages it, right?
The city park.
I know it
owns
says,
it, city owns the assets.
yeah, the city owns the assets.
I don't know.
I think that it's just kind of been typically the brewers that take care of the park. And they take care of the maintenance, and they take care of painting the grandstands. They redid that whole wall themselves, the brewers did. And I think that they're just kind of like, we have these maintenance that,
And they need help.
Yeah, and
we use field.
and to be clear, they didn't say it has to be over 3 years. They would love $30,000 in one lump sum. I just shared that that would be a real challenge,
I would agree.
so.
Do we charge for baseball games?
No.
I didn't pay to go to any baseball
So
games,
we
but
just charge for
yeah.
basically indoor activities and football?
pretty much.
Soccer,
No, we charge for soccer.
soccer, yep.
Oh,
Varsity soccer we do.
Bars,
Sure do.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
We typically don't charge, I believe, just for spring sports,
Like track, you don't charge?
unless it's a tournament
Oh,
or a
track.
section game.
they charge for soccer.
Yeah, the spring sports, they don't.
so I just want your initial feedback on this. If you feel it requires more discussion, I could even, invite Ron Beckman to come and meet with the facilities committee to talk through, some of the things. If you felt good about that, we could look at city school in the fall, talking to the city school committee. I will say, that I get the ask. I do get why they would ask. They do need help. We do use the facility.
Actually, they did talk about this at the commercial club the other night, and the question was asked when they are gonna start the project, and they said they hope to start it this July, and that they hope they have the funds secured because of the timeline for the tournament, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would need some more information to even consider it from my vantage point, especially because if we're saying that we can't make a donation, I don't know how this goes to an entity. I mean, we're talking, or to a nonprofit, or however you want to say it. If we were to buy proportional lights, I would think that would somehow have to go to the city. Like, I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's going on the city's balance sheet,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I could ask Tom too how because the city can't make a donation either, but it's
But
their
it's their
property.
facilities, they can do
So,
all the improvements.
yeah.
Right, so the portion that isn't is a donation.
So then the other question, then Amy brought this forward this morning. We talked a little bit about if we were to enter into a lease agreement per se, for our time, that we could look at, that again would be like lease levy funds, different, a different option, and maybe that would give you the security you're looking for in terms of agreement. But I don't know how the city would lease us time for the ballpark. That just felt,
I think that happens fairly regularly. I'd make some phone calls on that. I mean,
Okay.
so Chaska has their athletic ballpark that's
Yep.
owned by the community, and the school always
Yep.
utilize that.
okay,
And I don't know what their arrangement was. I know, at least when, long time ago when I was there, some of the school people did perform some of the maintenance on their own time.
sure.
But,
I just
that'd be the question. I mean, we have a rental schedule for our stuff. I'm pretty sure the city does too for their parks.
Sure. So if it was a rental agreement potentially, then that could look different. Just at its surface for a request to the district, can you make a donation? That isn't, districts don't do that. But 100%, I do feel very ethical and obligated to consider the maintenance fees for the space we've used.
I would agree
That's
with
all.
you. I mean, we use the facility and they're very accommodating to us, so I think that us contributing something to the maintenance
Maintenance,
piece of it.
that's all.
Well, I mean, I'd like some, if we could get an email on that maybe, as
Sure.
far as usage, hours.
Yep.
We don't do we practice there?
Yes.
We do, okay.
Yeah,
So I mean, just like an overall estimate of like
ahead.
days and hours would be helpful. And
I just
season-based.
texted Krista to see how many times a year we play at the mini-met, and she said 6 to 8, well, depending upon the weather.
Yeah.
But that's just plain, not practicing.
Could we, that's the different question for me is, could we practice up here? Because how many squads do we have? We have like freshman, JV,
It'd be,
and varsity.
yeah, Well,
three.
Seventh grade,
plus
eighth grade.
so, four.
That's what I'm saying, like, the more compelling case for
Yeah,
them, it
we-
might be practice for us than it is games.
I don't think we could accomplish it without the mini-met.
Okay.
I would say very confidently we couldn't
If
accomplish
you
what we
could
want to
get-
do.
If you could
Yep.
work with Joe and Kristen, get some info
Yep.
on that and send it to me. I'd be
Absolutely.
appreciative.
I'll send it to all of you. More info on usage.
You can maybe look at Belle Plaine too, 'cause I think Belle Plaine does the same thing. Their varsity team uses
Sure.
their city field.
No, that's helpful. Okay. So we'll find out usage, games, practice, more info on just the amount of time could we even accomplish without that space, and then what other districts do for essentially borrowed space and maintenance costs.
Or what they pay for
What we
rent
don't
on
wanna
those spaces.
do is get back and, we just got out of a joint powers agreement. We
Well,
don't
that's
want,
what this feels like to me.
we don't wanna
right?
get back there.
No,
We
yeah.
don't wanna go back there.
That's
Well,
what this-
that's where I felt uncomfortable with a lease agreement,
Total-
is
What do you mean?
I just felt like if we didn't have, like, we had talked lease levy and entering into some kind of a handshake agreement, and I didn't feel good about that, so,
Got it.
yeah. But I do appreciate the question. I appreciate the partnership that they give us each year with the use of the mini-met. I know our families value it a ton, so if there's a way that we can help provide for the maintenance to benefit our kids, like, I will try to find that information for you as a board so we can do that. Okay.
So then is the goal, we probably won't have this as an action item in July.
I mean, it's possible I could have all that information by the regular meeting in July, but I
With the
don't know.
4th in there, that would be hard.
I don't know. It might be more of an August,
Yeah,
yeah.
Because they're looking for the funds.
Right.
They might, you know what, if they are, they might really be able to
Right.
put effort to get
Yeah.
us.
Well, this is 30,000 out of 400,000, so I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
they have another $100,000 to raise, right? I don't think the 30